My name is Naomi Brooks, and I was 30 years old on the afternoon I learned that a wedding can end before the marriage ever begins. It happened in the hallway outside the Grand Laurel ballroom, 20 minutes before our reception was supposed to start. I was still in my wedding dress, ivory satin, sleeves my mother had altered by hand, a veil my father had paid for in cash because he said, "A girl should have one thing on her wedding day that makes her feel like she's walking through light." 220 guests were waiting behind a pair of carved wooden doors. A string quartet was playing somewhere near the terrace. The cake had already been cut for photographs. The champagne was poured, and my parents, Frank and Teresa Brooks, were standing beside the service elevator with no idea that the family table had been taken away from them. Table 1 was supposed to belong to both families. That was the seating chart I approved. My parents beside me. My husband's parents beside him. Aunt Rose, Uncle Manny, his grandmother, my godmother. That was the plan. But when I walked into the ballroom to check the final setup, I found my parents' name cards at table 19, shoved behind a pillar near the restroom corridor, between the children's table and a stack of folded high chairs. My father's chair had a wobble. My mother's place setting was missing a water glass. And the gold program cards on every plate had been reprinted without their names. Not moved, not forgotten, erased. When I asked my fiancé, Adrian Vale, why his mother had done it, he looked at me like I had asked him to stop the weather. "Naomi," he said, smoothing his cufflinks, "my mother is just trying to protect the tone of the evening." The tone, that was what he called my father's work boots, polished until they shone. That was what he called my mother's homemade dress. That was what he called the people who had raised me, fed me, driven me to every exam, and emptied their savings so their daughter could stand in that ballroom and be told they did not match the furniture. Then I heard his mother in the next room. "Frank cleans school floors. Adrian, Teresa washes sheets at a motel. They are sweet people, but they do not belong beside the veils at the front of the room." And Adrian answered, "I know. Just get us through tonight." That sentence did not break my heart. It clarified it. Because sometimes betrayal is not a shout. Sometimes it is the quiet agreement of a man you are about to marry, choosing comfort over courage while your parents are being tucked away like an embarrassment. My maid of honor, Sloane, was an attorney. She found me in the hallway with my hands perfectly still and my whole life tilting. "Naomi," she said, "the marriage license has not been signed." I turned to her. "What?" "The officiant has it. You and Adrian were supposed to sign during the reception. Until that paper is signed, witnessed, and filed, you are not legally married." I looked through the open ballroom doors, at the flowers, at the crystal, at table 1, at table 19. Then I looked back at Sloane. And I made the first decision of my life that did not ask anyone's permission. I walked into my wedding reception, stepped onto the stage, took the microphone, and asked every guest in that room to look at where my parents had been placed. By the time I finished speaking, the Vales had lost more than a bride. They had lost the room.
Yeah.
I grew up in Sandbridge, Virginia, 3 blocks from the water and worlds away from the people who owned houses with ocean views. Our house was small, yellow siding, rattling storm windows, a patch of crabgrass my father treated like a golf course. My father, Frank Brooks, worked as the head custodian at Sandbridge Elementary for 34 years. He opened the building before sunrise, cleared flooded hallways, fixed broken desks, and knew which kids needed winter coats before the office did. My mother, Teresa, cleaned rooms at the Mariner's Rest Motel. She made beds for strangers, scrubbed bathrooms no one thanked her for, and came home with hands that smelled faintly of bleach, no matter how much lotion she used. They were not glamorous. They were better. They were dependable. There is a kind of love that does not photograph well because it is too busy showing up. My father never missed a parent-teacher conference. My mother could turn one roasted chicken into 4 dinners and still make me feel rich. They helped me through nursing school with gas money, frozen casseroles, rides after clinicals, and belief so steady I sometimes mistook it for oxygen. By 29, I was a nurse practitioner at a women's health clinic in Norfolk, paying down my loans, living in a small apartment, and proud of the life I had built from the foundation Frank and Teresa Brooks gave me. That was when I met Adrian Vale. He came into the clinic with his younger sister, Lila, who had fainted during a charity run and insisted she was fine while looking like a Victorian ghost. Adrian was tall, composed, and polished in a way I was not used to. He thanked me for helping his sister, asked me to dinner 2 days later, and when I looked nervous at the expensive restaurant he chose, he offered to leave and get tacos instead. We got tacos. That is the part that made everything harder later. He was not cruel in the beginning. He remembered details. He brought soup when I was sick. He sat with my parents during my father's knee surgery and asked real questions about recovery. He ate my mother's pot roast like it was 5-star food, and my father liked him. The first time I met his mother, Evelyn Vale, she looked at my shoes before my face. The Vales owned real estate, marina developments, luxury rentals, charity boards, and the kind of social polish that whispers instead of shouts. Evelyn called my clinic work meaningful in a tone that meant not impressive. Adrian's father, Charles, was polite from a distance. His sister Lila was kind. I told myself I could handle Evelyn. People who insult you openly give you something to fight. People like Evelyn make you feel unreasonable for noticing. Adrian proposed 18 months later on the beach at sunset. No photographer, no hidden family, no audience. Just him, the sand, and a promise that he felt most himself with me. I said yes. When he told my father, Dad hugged him and said, "She takes care of herself. You just make sure she doesn't have to do it alone." Adrian nodded. I can do that. I wish he had meant it. Wedding planning began the week after the engagement. Evelyn called it helping. My mother called it a lot. I called it manageable until it became something else. Evelyn offered the Grand Laurel Country Club because the Vales were founding members. It would be silly to pay for a venue elsewhere, she said. And it has proper accommodations. Proper. That word appeared often. Proper venue. Proper dinner. Proper florist. Proper guest flow. My mother suggested our church hall for the rehearsal dinner and homemade desserts from women in the congregation. Evelyn smiled. Teresa, that is charming, but we have guests flying in from New York and Palm Beach. My mother nodded like she understood. Under the table, her hands folded until the knuckles whitened. I should have pushed back harder. Instead, I squeezed her knee and told myself it was only a party. A wedding is one day. A marriage is the life after. That is what I repeated. Adrian repeated something similar. Let Mom have the flowers. Show it. I said. Let Mom handle the seating. She knows these people. Let Mom talk to the planner. She does this all the time. At first, it felt practical. Then it became pattern. Evelyn rejected the photographer I chose because his portfolio was too local. She replaced the cake flavor because coconut was polarizing. She insisted on including a string quartet because recorded music during dinner felt thin. When my mother asked whether we could add her peach cobbler to the dessert table, Evelyn placed a hand over her heart. And that is so sweet, but the pastry chef has a cohesive vision. Cohesive vision. For dessert, my mother laughed it off in the car. I did not. Mom, I'm sorry. She waved one hand. Oh, honey, I don't need my cobbler at your wedding. I wanted it there. I know. That was worse. My father stayed quiet through most of the planning, but he listened. He had a way of hearing what people were trying not to say. One evening, after a dinner with the Vales, he walked me to my car and said, Evelyn doesn't like us much. I started to protest. He held up one hand. Baby girl, I clean schools for a living. I know when someone thinks dirt rubs off. My throat tightened. Adrian isn't like that. Dad looked toward the kitchen window, where Adrian was laughing with my mother over leftover pie. I hope not. That was all he said. Hope is such a dangerous thing when it belongs to someone you love. The money was complicated. The Vales offered to cover the venue, flowers, music, and most of the catering. My parents insisted on contributing. We are not guests at our daughter's wedding, my father said. They had saved $14,000. I did not know the number until much later. They had been putting money away since I was in high school, not specifically for a wedding, but for whatever big door opened first. Graduate school, a house, marriage, emergency, freedom. My mother called it the one-day fund. They gave $12,000 toward the catering deposit and kept $2,000 for clothes, travel for relatives, and whatever else came up. I cried when they told me. My father looked uncomfortable. Don't make it dramatic, he said. It is dramatic. It's dinner. It's your savings. It's our daughter. What do you say to that? There are gifts that make gratitude feel too small to hold them. I approved the final seating chart 3 weeks before the wedding. Table 1 was family. Frank Brooks, Teresa Brooks, Charles Vale, Evelyn Vale, Lila Vale, Aunt Rose, Uncle Manny, Adrian's grandmother, my godmother Denise, and one empty chair reserved in memory of my late brother Caleb, who died when I was 3 months old, and whose name my mother still whispered during hard things. Evelyn saw the chart. She said nothing. That silence should have frightened me more than criticism would have. The program also included a page I wrote myself. With love and gratitude to Frank and Teresa Brooks, whose sacrifices built the foundation beneath every step Naomi takes today. Evelyn read the proof. She touched the page with one polished nail. How sentimental, she said. I smiled. Yes. She did not smile back. The morning of the wedding, I woke up in my childhood bedroom. The walls were still pale blue. though the paint had faded behind where my old posters used to be. My mother had ironed my dress the night before with a towel over the satin and the concentration of a surgeon. My father made pancakes. Not because brides need pancakes, but because he did not know what else to do with his hands. He wore sweatpants and an undershirt, hair sticking up, reading glasses low on his nose while he studied the weather on his phone. 72 and clear, he announced. That's a sign. Of what? I asked. That I don't have to carry umbrellas and good shoes. Mom threw a dish towel at him. For an hour, everything was simple. Coffee, pancakes, my mother fussing with my hair, my father pretending not to cry when I came down in the dress. You look like your mother did the day she married me, he said. Mom said, Frank, I looked like a terrified church mouse. Best-looking terrified church mouse I'd ever seen. I wanted to freeze the room. The chipped mug, the old table, the sunlight on the floor. The two people who had made ordinary love feel like the safest place on earth. By 10 a.m., we were at the Grand Laurel. The venue was exactly what Evelyn wanted it to be. White stone terraces, manicured lawns, a ballroom with chandeliers that looked like frozen rain, gold-rimmed chargers, ivory napkins folded into shapes no one needed, tall arrangements of white roses and eucalyptus at every table. It was beautiful. That was part of the cruelty. Ugly things are easier to reject when they happen in ugly rooms. The ceremony was at noon in the garden. My father walked me down the aisle. His arm was steady. Halfway down, he whispered, Breathe, baby girl. I did. Adrian stood under the floral arch, handsome and emotional. He cried when he saw me. Real tears. I saw them. That is why people stay too long sometimes. Because not every part was false. We exchanged vows. He promised to honor me. I promised to choose him. Everyone applauded. We kissed. Photos happened. Hugs. Champagne. The kind of blur people later call magic because nobody wants to admit a major life event can be both beautiful and wrong. The reception was set for 3 p.m. During cocktail hour, I went inside the ballroom. Not because I was suspicious. Because I am a nurse practitioner, and verification is my religion. The room was empty except for staff. At first, I just looked at the flowers. Then I walked to table 1. The cards were arranged in a half circle. Charles Vale, Evelyn Vale, Lila Vale, Margaret Vale, Preston Moore, Camille Moore, Senator Whitcomb, Mrs. Whitcomb, Henry Ashford, Beatrice Ashford. My stomach tightened. I checked again. No Frank. No Teresa. No Aunt Rose. No Uncle Manny. No Denise. No empty chair for Caleb. I began moving through the room. Table 2. Vale cousins. Table 3. Donors. Table 4. Business partners. The Brooks side began at table 12. Not all together. Scattered. Neighbors with clinic co-workers. Aunt Rose near the DJ booth. Uncle Manny near the patio door. My parents were at table 19. Last row. Behind a square support pillar that blocked half the dance floor. 2 chairs missing chair covers. Restroom corridor to the right. Children's table to the left. Stack of folded high chairs behind them. A service station with pitchers and extra napkins near my father's shoulder. On the table were their name cards. Frank Brooks, Teresa Brooks. Gold ink. Perfect script. A beautiful insult. I stood there so long a server asked if I needed help. Yes, I said, who moved the seating chart. He looked uncomfortable. I'm sorry, ma'am. You'd have to ask Ms. Delaney. Ms. Delaney was the wedding planner Evelyn hired. I found her near the escort card display. Who moved my parents to table 19? She blinked once. That was all. Mrs. Vale adjusted the family placements this morning. Mrs. Vale is not the bride. She said she had your approval. She lied. The planner's professional smile thinned. I can see what can be done. No, you can tell me what else she changed. Ms. Delaney hesitated. So I picked up a program from the table. Opened it. The gratitude page was different. With love and gratitude to the Vale family for their generosity, leadership, and guidance on this beautiful day. Below that, Evelyn and Charles Vale, the Vale Foundation, the Grand Laurel Club, Adrian's grandparents. My parents' names were gone. Not moved to another page. Gone. So was Caleb's memorial line. I read the page once. Then again, something cold moved through me. Not anger yet. Clarity arriving early. I found Adrian in the groom's suite, laughing with his groomsmen over a bottle of bourbon. He smiled when he saw me. Hey, wife. Who moved my parents? The smile faded. What? At table 1. They're at table 19, behind a pillar next to the bathrooms. His groomsmen suddenly became fascinated by their glasses. Adrian sighed. That sigh. I hear it sometimes still. The sound of a man deciding my pain was an inconvenience before he even understood it. My mother had to adjust the layout. Why? Some donors came unexpectedly. Senator Whitcomb and his wife stayed for dinner. The Ashfords, too. Mom thought, your mother thought my parents should sit next to high chairs because a senator wanted salmon. Naomi, please do not phrase it like that. How should I phrase it? He rubbed his forehead. Everything is political with my parents. You know that. No, Adrian, everything is permitted with your parents because you permit it. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. Can we just get through today? I will talk to her after my parents sit there for 3 hours? It's a table. It is a message. He looked at me then, and I saw frustration under the polish. You're making this symbolic. No, your mother made it symbolic when she removed their names from the program. That caught him, not because he was shocked, because he knew. I saw it. You knew. He said nothing. I stepped back. You knew she erased them. Naomi, did you know? He swallowed. I knew she wanted the program simplified. Simplified. My parents' names. My dead brother's memorial chair. Simplified. I walked out before I said something I could not take back. I thought maybe I needed air. What I got instead was truth. The hallway between the groom's suite and the ballroom had a small sitting room attached, meant for older guests or bridal party overflow. The door was partly open. Evelyn's voice came from inside. It had to be done. Adrian. I stopped. I had not realized he followed me. His voice was lower. I told her to leave it until after the reception. You told her to leave a problem visible. They're her parents. They are not appropriate for table 1. A pause. Then Adrian, tired, maybe embarrassed, but not angry enough. Mom? Oh, no. Listen to me. Frank cleans school floors. Teresa cleans motel bathrooms. They may be good people, but there are photographs being taken for society pages tonight. Donors, investors, the Whitcombs, the Ashfords. We cannot have the front table looking like a staff appreciation luncheon. The sentence entered my body slowly. Not appropriate. School floors, motel bathrooms, staff appreciation luncheon. Then Adrian said, I know. Just get us through tonight. There are moments when your future breaks so quietly nobody else hears it. That was mine. I waited for him to correct her. Defend me. Defend them. Say one sentence that could keep the floor under us. He did not. Evelyn continued. After tonight, she will understand how things work in this family. And Adrian said nothing. Not one word. Silence can be a vow, too. I stepped into the doorway. Evelyn turned first. Her face rearranged itself instantly. Hospitality is armor. Naomi, darling, you should be taking photographs. I heard you. Adrian's eyes closed. Evelyn's smile remained. Heard what? My father cleans school floors. My mother cleans motel bathrooms. They are not appropriate for table 1. Our wedding would look like a staff appreciation luncheon. Color rose in Adrian's face. Evelyn did not blush. Women like her consider shame a scheduling error. Naomi, emotions are high today. You are taking a practical matter as a personal insult. It is a personal insult. It is a seating chart. It is my parents. Adrian stepped between us slightly. Not toward his mother. Between us. As if I were the threat. Naomi, let's not do this here. I looked at him. Where should I do it? Table 19? His jaw tightened. This is not fair. No, I said. It is finally fair. I turned and walked down the hall. Behind me, Evelyn said sharply. Adrian, handle this. I waited. 1 second. 2. 3. No footsteps. He did not follow. That was the final answer. Sloane found me near the bridal suite. My best friend since nursing school, maid of honor, family law attorney, professional truth teller, and the only person besides my mother who could look at my face and identify a disaster by category. What happened? I told her everything. The table, the program, the sitting room, the sentence, his silence. Sloane did not gasp. She did not say, "Maybe you misunderstood." That is why I loved her. She asked, "What do you want to happen next?" I don't know. Then let me give you one fact. She reached into her clutch and took out her phone. I checked with the officiant this morning because I had a weird feeling about Evelyn turning the license signing into a reception moment. You checked? I am your lawyer friend. Anxiety is a service I provide. Despite everything, I almost laughed. The license has not been signed, she said. The ceremony was ceremonial until the civil document is executed. The plan was to sign after the first toast with photos. So legally, you are not married. If you do not sign, there is no marriage to undo." The hallway became very still. The air conditioner hummed overhead. Somewhere outside, a waiter laughed. My wedding bouquet sat on a side table, white roses and eucalyptus bound in silk ribbon. Beautiful. Expensive. Not mine anymore. Sloane put a hand on my arm. "Naomi, I will stand with whatever you choose, but choose before they put you in front of the room with a pen." I nodded. "Stay close." "Always." Then I went to find my parents. They were at table 19. My father was already sitting. Of course he was. He had found his assigned seat and accepted it with the discipline of a man who had spent his life making the best of where other people placed him. My mother was smoothing the edge of her dress. Navy blue, knee-length. She had bought it from a consignment shop and altered the waist herself. She had sewn a small line of pearl beads at the neckline because she said weddings needed a little shine. The high chairs were stacked behind her. A toddler at the children's table was already crying. The restroom door opened and closed every few seconds. My father smiled when he saw me. "Yeah, look at you," he said, "like a movie star." I crouched beside him. "Oh, Dad." He saw it immediately. "What happened?" I looked at my mother. She looked back, already knowing, and not wanting to know. "I'm sorry," I said. My mother's hand went to her necklace. "For what?" "For letting it get this far." Dad glanced around the room, then back at me. "Sweetheart, it is just a table." "No," I said. "It is not." His eyes softened. He knew I was right. He had known from the moment he sat down. But my father's first instinct was always to protect me from needing to protect him. That was love. And it made me angrier. "Naomi," Mom whispered, "do not make a scene because of us." "I am not making a scene because of you." I stood. "I am ending one because of me." My father started to rise. I touched his shoulder. "Stay here for 1 minute." "Baby girl." 1 minute. Across the room, the guests were beginning to enter. Evelyn's friends in silk. Adrian's business contacts. Clinic nurses. My cousins. Dad's school colleagues. Motel housekeepers who had covered Mom's shifts so she could enjoy the weekend. People filling tables according to a plan that had been changed by a woman who believed money was a moral credential. The MC, Adrian's cousin Bryce, stepped toward the microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen, please find your seats. The family reception will begin shortly." Family. There it was again. A word people used while deciding who counted. I looked at Sloane. She was near the stage, watching. I nodded once. She nodded back. Then I walked to the microphone. The first sound was my heels. Slow. Steady. Clicking against the polished ballroom floor. The room did not go quiet immediately. Rooms rarely understand a woman is about to change her life until she is already halfway to the stage. A few guests turned. Then more. Adrian saw me from table 1 and stood. Evelyn reached for his wrist. I saw it. He did not pull away. Bryce smiled uncertainly as I stepped onto the small platform. "The bride," he said into the mic, trying to sound playful. I took the microphone from him. He let go. "Good choice." I looked out at the ballroom. 220 guests. White flowers. Gold chargers. a cake that cost more than my first car. The Vale family seated at table 1 like a portrait of inherited certainty. My family scattered toward the edges. My parents at table 19, behind a pillar. Beside the restrooms, I took one breath, then another. "I want to thank everyone for coming today," I said. My voice came through the speakers, clean and calm. "I know most of you came to celebrate a marriage. Before anything else happens, I need you to understand why that marriage will not be happening." A gasp moved through the room. Adrian stepped forward. "Naomi?" I lifted one hand. "Do not interrupt me." He stopped. Maybe because the microphone made me louder. Maybe because for the first time, I was not asking. I turned slightly and pointed toward the back of the room. My parents, Frank and Teresa Brooks, are sitting at table 19. I would like everyone to look at them. No one wanted to. That is the thing about public truth. It asks people to move their eyes where politeness told them not to. But slowly, heads turned. 220 guests looked toward the last row. At my father in his polished shoes and navy suit. At my mother in the dress she altered herself. At the pillar blocking the dance floor. At the restroom corridor. At the stack of high chairs. At the service station. My mother lowered her eyes. My father did not. He looked at me. Steady. Always steady. That is not where they were supposed to sit. I continued. The seating chart I approved, placed them at table 1, with the groom's parents, because that is where the parents of the bride belong. Evelyn's face was still. Too still. This morning, Evelyn Vale moved them to the back of the room and told the planner I approved it. I did not. A murmur, soft but sharp. I held up the program card. She also reprinted the wedding programs. In the version I approved, there was a page thanking my parents, Frank and Teresa Brooks, for the sacrifices that built my life. That page is gone. I opened the card and read the replacement line. With gratitude to the Vale family for their generosity, leadership, and guidance. Then I closed it. My parents' names were removed, so was the memorial line for my baby brother Caleb. That sound was different. Not a gasp. A collective intake of moral air. Evelyn's hand tightened around her champagne flute. Charles Vale looked down at his plate. Lila covered her mouth. Adrian stared at me like I had betrayed him by describing what he allowed. I went on. My father has worked as a school custodian for 34 years. He opens the building before sunrise so children can walk into clean classrooms. He fixes broken desks, clears flooded hallways, salts sidewalks before teachers arrive, and knows which students need a winter coat before the office does. A woman from Dad's school began crying. My mother works housekeeping at the Mariners Rest Motel. She has cleaned rooms for 28 years. She has made beds for strangers, scrubbed bathrooms no one thanked her for, and still came home to help me study because she believed her daughter could become anything. My voice thickened. I steadied it. Together, they saved $12,000 toward this reception. Every dinner being served tonight, every plate, every glass, every course, was made possible in part because Frank and Teresa Brooks believed their daughter's wedding mattered. People looked at the plates in front of them, exactly as I wanted. I turned toward Evelyn. And you put them by the bathrooms. The room broke open. Whispers. Chairs shifting. Someone said, "Oh my God!" Someone else said, "That's disgusting." Adrian stepped forward again. "Naomi, this is not the place." I looked at him. "This is exactly the place, because this is where you let it happen." His face flushed. When I confronted my fiancé," I said, facing the room again, "he told me we should get through tonight. When his mother said my father cleaned floors and my mother cleaned motel rooms and that they were not appropriate for table 1, he did not defend them. He did not defend me. He said, 'I know. Just get us through tonight.'" Evelyn stood. "And that is a private family matter." I smiled then. "Just once. No, a private family matter would have been respecting mine." I removed the wedding ring from my finger. It was not the legal part. But symbolism matters when people use symbols to humiliate you. I set it on the edge of the podium. I came here today to marry a man I believed would stand beside me. But a marriage where my family must be hidden to protect someone else's image is not a marriage I can enter. Adrian's voice cracked. "Naomi, please." I looked at him. "I gave you chances all day. You gave them to your mother." He had no answer. The silence after that was the loudest thing in the room. I reached up and unpinned my veil. Folded it carefully. Once, twice, 3 times. My mother taught me that even leaving deserves dignity. I placed it beside the ring. "To everyone who came from Sandbridge, from the clinic, from the school, from the motel, from the places the Vales think do not belong at table 1, thank you. We are leaving." Then I looked at my parents. "Mom, Dad, let's go home." For one moment, nobody moved. Then my father stood, slowly. My mother stood beside him, tears on her face and shoulders straighter than I had ever seen them. Sloane walked to the stage with my coat and bag. Lila Vale stood too. That surprised me. Evelyn hissed her name. Lila looked at her mother and said, clear enough for the front tables to hear, "No, not this time." She crossed the room and hugged me once. "I am sorry," she whispered. I nodded. Then I walked down the center aisle of my own reception, past tables of people who had come for a wedding and witnessed a boundary instead. Behind me, Evelyn's voice cut through the room. "She is humiliating this family." My father stopped. "Just once." He turned enough for his voice to carry. "No, ma'am. She is honoring hers." Then we walked out. The ballroom doors closed behind us. And just like that, I was not married. I was free. That night, we went home to Sandbridge. Not to the hotel suite Evelyn had reserved. Not to the Vale after-party. Home. My parents' kitchen still had the same round table with one uneven leg and a burn mark from when I set a hot pan down at 17. My mother took off her shoes at the door and stood there for a long moment, holding them by the straps. Then she laughed. Not because anything was funny, because sometimes the body chooses the strangest door out of shock. "I paid $60 to have these dyed," she said. My father looked at the shoes. "They still look nice?" "Frank, what they do?" That made me cry. Not the microphone speech. Not leaving the ballroom. That, my father noticing her shoes. Sloane came over with takeout containers from the Chinese place near the highway because None of us had eaten. We sat around the kitchen table in formal clothes, eating lo mein from cartons while my wedding makeup smudged under my eyes. At 9:42 p.m., Sloane called the officiant. She put him on speaker. "Just confirming," she said. "The marriage license was not signed or filed?" "Correct," he said, sounding like a man who wanted no part of society war. "The civil license remains unsigned. I will return it to the clerk's office as unused." Sloane looked at me. "You are legally unmarried. No annulment, no divorce, nothing to undo." I exhaled. My father closed his eyes. My mother whispered, "Thank God." The messages began at 10 p.m. "Adrian, please talk to me. Adrian, you misheard things. Adrian, my mother was wrong, but you destroyed us. Adrian, Naomi, I love you. Adrian, you embarrassed my father in front of donors. Adrian, call me now." Then, Evelyn from a new number. "You have no idea what you have done." I blocked both numbers. At midnight, Charles Vale called my father's house. Dad answered. I sat at the table, still in my wedding dress, listening. "Mr. Brooks," Charles said, voice tired. "This is Charles Vale. I would like to speak with Naomi." My father looked at me. I shook my head. "She does not want to speak." "Frank, perhaps we can all calm down. A lot of money and reputation are involved." Dad's jaw tightened. "My daughter was involved." A pause. "Yes, of course." "No, Mr. Vale, not of course. That was the problem." Dad hung up, set the phone down gently. Then he looked at me. "I was proud of you today." My throat closed. "You were?" "I wish you never had to do it, but yes." My mother reached across the table and took my hand. "Me too." For the first time all day, I let myself break. The fallout started quietly. Consequences in wealthy rooms often arrive wearing nice shoes. The first call came Monday morning. Senator Whitcomb's wife, who had been sitting at table 1, resigned from the Vale Foundation's fundraiser committee. Her email was brief. "Given what I witnessed Saturday, I am no longer comfortable lending my name to the event." 2 donors followed, then 3. By Wednesday, a local society blog posted a blind item about a country club wedding that collapsed after a prominent family moved the bride's working-class parents beside the restrooms. No names were used. Everyone knew anyway. I never posted. I never called a reporter. I never sent screenshots to anyone. I did not need to. 220 people had watched Evelyn Vale turn a seating chart into a confession. Vale Coastal Holdings lost the Whitcomb Marina zoning introduction within 2 weeks. The Ashfords delayed a joint investment. A hospital charity quietly removed Evelyn from its fall gala host committee. Nobody said she had been punished. They said she was taking time to focus on family. That is how polite society buries consequences without admitting a grave was dug. Adrian came to my clinic 10 days after the wedding. He waited by my car, looking tired and less perfect than I remembered. "I should have defended you," he said. "Yes." "I should have moved them back." "Yes." "I was scared of making everything worse." "No," I said. "You were scared of your mother, and you made me pay for it." His eyes filled. "Can we try counseling?" I looked at the man I had almost married and felt sadness, not temptation. "Counseling helps people rebuild bridges," I said. "I am still identifying which parts of the bridge you burned while I was standing on it." He had no answer. That was the last time we spoke in person for months. Then my period was late. I took the pregnancy test at 6:15 in the morning on my bathroom floor. 2 lines appeared immediately. For a while, I just stared. Then I laughed once, cried once, and called my mother. She arrived in 12 minutes wearing pajama pants and rain boots, sat down beside me on the cold tile, and put her arm around my shoulders. "I'm scared," I said. "I know." "I'm keeping the baby." "I know." "I have to tell him." "I know." She held me tighter. "You are not alone." My father came an hour later with coffee and no questions until I was ready. When I told him, he stared at the wall for a long moment, then said, "We'll need a better crib than the one I built for your cousin in 1998. I cried again. He pretended not to notice. Sloan helped me email Adrian. 3 sentences, clear, legal, final. "I am pregnant. I am continuing the pregnancy. If you want parental rights, all communication goes through counsel." His replies came in waves. "Please let me come over. We can fix everything. My mother has no say in this. You cannot keep my child from me." 3 messages, 3 different versions of the same man. The lover, the frightened son, and the veil who reached for control when apology failed. I answered once, "I am not keeping the child from you. I am keeping myself safe from confusion. Counsel only." Evelyn called the clinic the next morning from a blocked number. "Naomi," she said, calm as polished marble. "I understand you are carrying a veil child." I closed my office door. "I am pregnant. The baby is a veil. The baby is mine. You are being emotional again." That word, again. "Evelyn," I said, "you will not call my workplace again. You will not call my parents. You will not contact my doctor. If Adrian wants rights, he can pursue them legally. If you attempt to intimidate me, every call becomes part of the court record." Silence. Then she said, "You have become very hard." "No," I said. "I have become very clear." Pregnancy was not a soft montage. It was doctor appointments, where forms asked for the father's information, and my pen paused. It was waking from dreams, where I was back in the ballroom and could not find the exit. It was my mother sewing maternity pants while my father watched crib safety videos like he was preparing for a federal inspection. It was also joy, stubborn and bright. At the 20-week scan, Adrian came with Sloan present. The technician turned the screen, and a tiny profile appeared, a nose, a hand, a heartbeat fast enough to sound like courage. "It's a girl," the technician said. Adrian covered his mouth. I looked at the screen and thought of table 19. No, not her. Never her. I named her Maren Teresa Brooks. Maren because I loved the sound. Teresa because my mother knew how to sit on bathroom floors. Brooks because names are houses, and I knew which house had kept me safe. Adrian asked through counsel for the baby to carry the Vale surname. My attorney replied with one sentence, "Ms. Brooks declines." Marin was born during a storm at 3:42 in the morning. 7 pounds, 1 ounce, dark hair, furious lungs. Adrian was there because I allowed it. He stood near my shoulder, crying silently when she screamed. When the nurse laid her on my chest, the whole room disappeared. There was just warmth, weight, life. Mine. Adrian whispered, "She's perfect." I looked at him and said, "She is not a second chance for us." He nodded. "I know." Maybe he did. My father held Marin after me and my mother. His rough hands looked enormous around her tiny body. "Hi, little moon," he whispered. Then he cried so hard my mother had to take off his glasses and wipe them. The veils had tried to decide who belonged at the front of the room. My daughter would never wonder where her people sat. The custody arrangement came slowly and legally. Adrian got supervised visits at first, then short daytime visits, then one overnight every other weekend after Moran was older. He learned the car seat, he brought diapers, he communicated through the parenting app. He became a better father than fiancé, which is a strange sentence to live with, but it is true. Evelyn did not meet Marin for more than a year. Not because the door was locked, but because I gave her conditions. No unsupervised visits, no social media photos, no correction of the Brooks surname, no comments about my parents' jobs, clothes, home, food, or place in my daughter's life. She called the terms humiliating. I called them generous. Eventually, after Charles had a mild stroke and the Vale family remembered that mortality does not care about reputation, Evelyn agreed. We met in a public park. My parents were there. Adrian was there. Lila was there. Marin wore overalls and one sock because she had declared war on the other. Charles crouched carefully and said, "Hello, Marin." Marin handed him a leaf. He accepted it like a legal document. Evelyn looked at my mother for a long moment. I braced myself. Then she said, "Teresa, she has your smile." My mother blinked. So did I. It was the first kind thing Evelyn had ever said about my family that was not dressed as pity. The visit lasted 40 minutes. No miracle, no hug, no perfect healing. Just a child handing leaves to adults who had made a mess before she was born. It was enough for one day. 3 years later, I live 4 streets from my parents in a small house with uneven porch paint and morning light in the kitchen. Marin is 3 now. She thinks Grandpa Frank can fix anything, and Grandma Teresa knows the correct amount of cinnamon for every situation. She thinks table 1 is the old kitchen table at my parents' house because that is where pancakes happen, birthdays happen, apologies happen, and people always pull up another chair. She has never seen a trash can near someone's place setting and thought, that is where they belong. That is victory. Not the society gossip. Not the lost donors. Not Evelyn learning to swallow her words in public parks. This, a child who does not inherit the shame someone tried to hand me. People ask whether I regret walking out. No, I regret ignoring the rehearsals. The cobbler. The venue. The program proof. The way Adrian kept saying after instead of now. But I do not regret leaving. A seating chart is not just a seating chart when someone uses it to rank human worth. A program is not just a paper when someone erases the people who built your life. Silence is not neutrality when disrespect is happening in front of you. And love is not love if it requires you to hide your mother's hands or your father's job to make other people comfortable. My father cleans school floors. My mother cleans motel rooms. Those sentences contain more honor than any title Evelyn ever placed beside her name. My name is Naomi Brooks. I am 33 years old. I am a nurse practitioner, a mother, a daughter, and a woman who once walked out of a ballroom in a wedding dress because the man waiting at the front would not defend the people who stood behind me my whole life. I did not leave because my parents were moved to a bad table. I left because my future was shown to me in miniature, my family hidden, my pain minimized, my husband silent, his mother in charge. Once I saw it, I could not unsee it. And if there is one thing I want anyone listening to remember, it is this. When someone shows you where your family will sit in their life, believe the seating chart. Then decide whether you are willing to spend forever walking past table 19 to reach someone who already chose table 1 without you.